Hey all, so today I'm going to compare the three comic book adaptations of the Odyssey. Dun, 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 dun. That kind of sounded like Star Wars, but you know, that'd be really cool. Anyways, this is the second edition. Actually, this newer looking one was the first probably comic book adaptation of the Odyssey. It was written or published in 1951, and then this second one was published in 1977, and this one was published in 2009. It is a volume of all 8 comic books that were sold. It's kind of got like a graphic novel feel, as I mentioned before, and the art is definitely modernized for the time. All 3 of these beautiful comic books have an introduction discussing the source of the story of the Odyssey and the authorship of Homer, kind of explaining a little bit their personal perspectives. Roy Thomas was probably the most explicit in his opinion that the Odyssey was a sequel to the Iliad, and that overall it didn't matter who authored the Odyssey, that the importance was the timelessness of the story, whether or not it was written by a collection of people or written by one single person, that it didn't matter overall. The other two just discuss the beginning. In the beginning, this one looks more like an essay written by someone who works for Classics Illustrated, and then this one is more just a little blurb about the author, just the most basic information, nothing really in depth. The interesting thing about the Classics Illustrated comics is that it is purpose-driven to bring younger generations to the source text. They want kids and just children to be directed to what we consider to be classics in America, Britain, Canada, whatever. And they're drawing, attention to how fascinating or interesting or adventurous they are, especially with the tale of Odysseus. It's very action-packed, very mythical, kind of like a fantasy, kind of borderline fantasy. And they just want to draw you back. Even it says right here, now that you have read the Classics Illustrated edition, don't miss the added enjoyment of reading the original, obtainable at your local school or public library. So they're even sending you to school for this stuff. So it's kind of impressive in a sense that they decided to take on a project like this by illustrating and adapting other classics to graphic novel form, because most of them are very, very long, very lengthy, very detailed, and there's so much information that you can put in here, but it's all within something you can read in less than an hour. So they made some choices, like not including Penelope or Telemachus or Athena very often in the story, and just focusing on Odysseus' adventure to draw people in, because that's what most people are really interested in, even though it's only roughly about 4 to 5 books of the actual book or epic. Same with this. I don't necessarily know whether or not they were trying to appeal to younger generations or if they wanted to draw attention back to the source text, but it does give a little bit about Homer, and it brings you into the story while using some of the same words. And the people in this text specifically have conversations with each other within the text, which is interesting because with Classics Illustrated, the dialogue between characters seemed really out of place and didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. While here it kind of seems like they actually have some sort of bond or connection. Overall, I think the graphic novel adaptation, this one right here, did the best job of adapting the original text. Some of these are quotes. Most of them are condensed, so it's not directly quoted except for a few lines and what adaptation theorists or theories about oral traditions and kind of ancient epic stories, when they were written from oral traditions, they use stocked characteristics or stock, so like Rosy Fingered Dawn and the Great Mariner, Odysseus, and other stuff like that. Those kind of refer back to the characters so you know who you're talking about, no matter what part in the story you are. I can't get over Hermes. He's wearing his little hat and his little whitey tighties. You guys gotta read this. This is great. And the vampire cookie. That's great. So it does contain the basic elements and adventures of Odysseus, and that's the important part of this story. This one does not really have a call to action specifically either. It has a bio on the author or the writer and the graphic novelist. They include the front covers for all eight of the issues. As you can see, there's only one cover with the Cyclops on it, which is different than the other two because obviously the Cyclops is a really big part. It's on the front cover. But with this one, it only shows up in 3, and it's kind of a different representation than what we normally see of the Cyclops. We just see his eye in the impending stake. Kind of terrifying. It ends with a little bit about Homer right here. This is the final panel, and then a little bit about Homer and his works. Each of these novels ended a little bit different. This one ended very much like the final book of the Odyssey written by Homer. How they had a brief war and how he had to go into the land to make an offering. The other ones, this one they just had a reunion and that was it. The end, it's done. And then this one, also, I'll show you. He also just came home and Penelope is happy and everything's good and that's it. So I was really happy to see that they included the part of the Odyssey that the other two didn't. Another important thing is that it leaves room for imagination. You think, okay, Odysseus has one more adventure. He's got to go so far inland that the people there have never seen an oar on a ship. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys get interested in reading these adaptations. They're totally worth it, and there's a whole bunch out there that you've probably never gotten to see or read before. The graphic novel and comic book adaptations are wonderful because they combine visual and written elements together in a cohesive manner. So if it's done really well, it is really enjoyable. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again.